Thanks for clicking on the video, and here today at Numbermic, we are going to go over another AD&D module, first edition. This is under Illefarn. It's designated N5, and it was published by TSR back in 1987. Now, the N series stands for Novice, and the concept was basically to introduce new players and DMs to the game. And so it started off with N1 here, against the Cult of Reptile God, N2, Force Oracle, N3, Destiny of Gods, N4, Treasure Hunt, which I have to let you know is the best of the bunch. And the last in this series is this one, N5. So we're going to talk about this one today. There's a couple things of note to this, besides being the last one in the N series, and I'll tell you more about it as we go along. So I guess the first thing we should do is get this out of the wrap. And while I do so, if you're new to the channel, like what we do, think about hitting that sub button because I'm planning to go over every single alphabet module out there. And we do have a free giveaway going on for D&D, and it's to celebrate our 1-year anniversary, and it's for an actual red box published by TSR in 1983. So I'll put a link down below for that giveaway. All right, so thanks for listening to that. Now let's start off by appreciating this cover here. So this cover is painted by Jeff Easley, and you can see our hero scaling the city wall and encountering a pair of gargoyles. So this is a counter later on in the module on page 42. So yes, it is a really long booklet. So the other thing of note is this is an adventure for levels 0 through 3. However, it's probably more set for 1 through 3 than 0. It actually refers to this module. See here, this was actually designed for levels 0 to 1. So that is why this is really a great module to start off with, not just to play, but also to run as a DM. It's really straightforward. Okay, so let's flip this to the back here. And you can see a description here. See here on the back, there is a curse on the land. Daggerfall is fairly quiet for a frontier town. Sure, there might be lizardmen and orcs and other political machinations going on. However, suddenly being in the militia is not quite as easy as it used to be. So yeah, the setting is your party is going to join up with the militia for this town and go off on various different small adventures. You could also see something here on the bottom here. Under Illefarn is the first module produced for use with the Forgotten Realms campaign set. So yeah, you can see here it has the logo for Forgotten Realms, and you see it displayed prominently here on the front. Now that is actually not true. The reason why is because Daggerfall is actually the setting of this module. And this doesn't have that Forgotten Realms logo, but yes, it's actually set in the same campaign setting. You can see here the product number is 9,185. This one's 9,212. And you know what came out right after this one? This booklet here. This is FR1, obviously for Forgotten Realms. And this is not a module per se, it's more of a resource book. And we'll go over this one day as well. And there are multiple numbers to this. However, I believe for first edition, it's 1 through 6, and then 7 and beyond is for second edition and other editions. All right, so thanks for listening to that. So once again, set in Forgotten Realms with the first official logo of it, I suppose, but once again, not the actual first module in this world. Now, I guess the other thing we should point out is the author, Steve Perrin. He's a game designer and is probably best known for creating a role-playing game called RuneQuest. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. Maybe we'll talk about that in the future one day. Anyways, this is the only module I'm aware that he wrote. All right, so let's take a look at the booklet itself. And on the cover, so we can see here on the map, Illefarn, and its range of mountains there. And we can see the town of Daggerfall, where most of the adventure will take place. You can see some other highlighted areas, the Blizzard Marsh here, the Sea of Swords, which I'm sure you've heard of, and the Way In. Maybe we'll take a closer look at this map as we encounter the other adventures. You can see here on the secondary map, it's a little close-up of Daggerfall and the surrounding areas. And within here is another map of the actual city, and then a little special map. We'll talk about this later in the adventure. Okay, so let's set this map aside and get the booklet out here. Let's take a look at this booklet here. It's pretty lengthy. It's 48 pages long, 48. All right, so most of these booklets tend to be either 16 pages or 32, but this is one of the lengthier ones. You could also see here, it gives credit to Jeff Easley for the cover, but the interior art is by someone else, Louise Perrin. Interesting little tidbit, you can see her last name here is Perrin, and his is Perrin. Well, they're actually married. I'm not sure if this is actually her maiden name or not. I couldn't find that information, but if it isn't, well, I guess it's meant to be. Anyways, let's get on with the rest of the module. So let's look at the front here. So before I get started, of course, I'm going to give you a warning that there are going to be heavy spoilers here. I'm going to go through this entire module in 4K so you can read along with me. Okay, so let's get started. And you can see here that it states it's an adventure for 4 to 8 players, level 1. And it's possible to start at level 0. However, it states here to do that, you should actually reference N4. So this module here. I'll put a link down below for my review of this where we discuss how to run characters of level 0, which is really cool. All right, so this booklet is going to start with a lot of reference material about Forgotten Realms. Once again, this source book and the other ones like this came out after this module. There was a campaign box set that came out for Forgotten Realms, but that was a higher price and maybe they figured people didn't pick it up. Here we're going to start with some of the races within Forgotten Realms, or I should say species nowadays. And it's going to discuss how they are treated within this city-state of Illefarn. They will give you little tips here about dungeon mastering. However, it's very cursory. And here it's going to go over character creation. It's going to discuss the politics of Daggerford. More details about Daggerford. And as I mentioned earlier, the main hook for this adventure is that the player characters are going to be part of the militia. And so they mentioned some of the training they may go through if they want to do fighting or maybe train in magic. Then they're going to talk about the town here that we saw in the reference map 3. So that would be here. This goes over some of the locations. It's just a lot of filler here and a really detailed setting. I would characterize this module more as a source book because here we're on page 13 and it's still going to talk about source material here. It's going to talk about the way in. It mentions Waterdeep here, heads of the city-state. We got the Duke here and his lady. Got the family tree. And sorry if I'm just glossing over this really fast, but once again, this is all just sort of background reference material. And I think it's a little too much for a novice DM to use. This is so much detail that they may not really need to run a simple adventure. And here is actually getting started to our first adventure. And this is already on page 21. So there's 20 pages here of reference material for a DM to absorb. And that might be cool for maybe some other series line. However, for the N series, I don't think it really belongs here. As once again, N is standing for novice. And certainly all this reference material could have been in a different source book like this. And this page is not even the venture. This is just random encounters here. More random encounters. And then right in the middle of the book, you can see the staples here. This is actually when we get to our first adventure. We're gonna go on is titled Lizard Raid once again, and you're gonna be on militia duty here, guarding a wall, and you're gonna see a rider come up to you in dire straits, crying out, lizardmen raided Lord Crom's holding, need help, and he's gonna collapse and die in your arms. So, of course, the militia are going to be charged to investigate and see what happened to Lord Crome's estate. Along the way, you might have some wonder encounters, and you might encounter a dinosaur or two. And you might be observant and notice that the holding itself, there's a lot of dead soldiers, but also some dead lizardmen, and they are wearing some blue feather ornaments. As they follow the trail of where the lizardmen came from, they will encounter a group of lizardmen, but these are going to be decked out in red colored pelts. And it's going to be led by a lizardman titled Red Eye, or his name is Red Eye. And he's not the one caused that massacre, and but he knows of the blue feathered tribe, and he will lead the player characters to that region. And when they get there, they're going to encounter the blue feathered lizardmen tribe, and they will have an actual lair here. And yeah, you could fight them and slay them, and basically your mission is complete. And that's it. That is the Lizard Raid. And so I would categorize this small adventure, Lizard Raid, as more of a Book of Layers encounter. Book of Layers is in reference to these books. This is the first one and a second one. And I did reviews of these already, and you could check my playlist for these. But these are chock full of small little encounters exactly like this. Maybe about 50 in each book here. And so definitely not a campaign that you would, or a venture you would think of being in the standard module. So unfortunately, the next one is of similar nature. This is titled Caravan Duty. And can you imagine what you're going to do? Yes, you're on the militia, and you're going to be charged with guarding a caravan. And when you do this, you're going to go along a pathway and come back. And the monsters you're going to encounter are just going to be wandering monsters. So you're just going to roll dice on the table that was earlier in this booklet, and that's it. That's your entire counter. The main setup for this small little vignette, though, is if you defeat the group of monsters that you randomly encounter, you will be rewarded with a map. And so this map is actually going to be this special one here. So this will lead to a subsequent adventure, but that is the main goal of that small little adventure, just to get this reward. Okay, so the next mini adventure is called Rescue Mission. And here, basically the Duke has found out that his sister, Lady Browen, has been kidnapped by the Baron. And so he charges the militia to rescue her. She has been taken into the forest, and you and the militia are going to be hot on the heels of the Baron and chase after him. So along the pathway, we'll encounter some of the Baron's men. So there are some encounters there. Flip the page here. And yes, you might encounter other wandering monsters. So you can see here, you roll, you get 1, you get bears and bees, 2 centaurs, 3 wild elves, 4 ghouls, 5 nixies, 6 pixies. And eventually, when you get deeper into the forest, you will encounter a voice, and you will feel a tap on your shoulder. I believe you are part of Daggerford's militia, whispers a female voice. Where is my brother? A lovely young woman suddenly appears up before you, and this is the Lady Browen, and she actually has a spell of invisibility, and then she was able to escape from the Baron's clutches. And she states, I imagine he's rather upset right now. And another voice cries out, I certainly am. And of course, it's the Baron. So he is a level 3 Cavalier here, and of course, he's going to attack the player characters. and they will have to do battle against him. If they harm him or cause him too much damage, he might try to escape. But basically, you are going to have to be in charge of bringing him to justice. Now, while you are trying to do battle with the Baron, there is going to be actually a group of goblins attacking you. Foreshadows some of the actions that will happen later in the next adventure. You can see here, there is a map number 8. This actually has nothing to do with the rescue mission. This actually has to do with other things later on. So this is really poor planning. I mean, why put a map here that it does not even take place for this one section? I mean, it's a little bit bizarre. So while you're doing battle with the goblins and the Baron and trying to bring him to justice, eventually you will encounter this level 7 fighter. He's a wild elf by the name of Malandroch, and he's part of the next adventure. And the next adventure, as you can see here, is the title, Under Illefarn. And so Illefarn is a mountain in this region, and there is a little story here that states that underground there is a fallen kingdom, and it is long lost. And eventually, after they wrap up this other militia mission, you're supposed to introduce the characters to a giant earthquake that happens. And basically, it's going to shake up the region, cause a disturbance. And eventually, the player characters will be charged to investigate why the water in the nearby regions are now being contaminated. And they believe it's caused by the earthquake. And some poisoned water is spilling out of the mountain, and they are going to be charged to investigate the source of this and stop it. So let's flip the next page here. So this quest is actually going to be commissioned by Malandroch, who you met earlier, and he's actually the king of the elves, as it turns out. So gift that the wild elf will give will be this sigil, and it's a symbol showing a dwarven hammer. It says this might be useful on your journey to this underground region. So under Illefarn can represent a couple of things, you know, in the shadow of the mountain and also underground. So this is gonna sort of be like an Underdark type mission. Now, going back to that map that the player characters got earlier, you can see here, it's titled Ye Map of Doors of Illefarn, as the dwarves left them. So there are some indications where some entrances might be to the underground caverns and rooms down below. The player characters can head off into these regions and find it readily accessible because once again, it's going to be cracked open by the earthquake. Now, this booklet will now give additional source information about the different factions in this underground region. There are 3 factions. There is the Dwarven faction, there is the Orc faction, and there is the Necromancer faction. And it's going to give you details of how they will interact with each other. So it's interesting that this is also source material, and it wasn't put up in the front with all the other source material, the additional 20 pages initially, and so it's embedded in here. That being said, you only really need this source information. You didn't need all those other 20 pages. So I think this would have been better served just to have this in the front and maybe leave all that other material in a different resource and make this booklet a little bit more concise and compact and more geared to this adventure. And it's an adventure very loosely, because as I flip through these other pages, we'll see that in this underground region, you can see one of the maps here. And that map that I showed you earlier, map 8, that's one of those underground regions. So they're going to have 3 factions fighting over all this territory. And there might be some traps and wandering monsters as well. Let me flip the next page here. This is map 9, map 10. Now look at these numbers. And you could glance over these sections. A lot of these really are just empty and more for architectural design, like a kitchen or a storeroom or whatever it might be. And none of these rooms really have anything of import except for one. And I'll tell you about that in a bit. And so here you see another map here, and this goes all the way up to like 150 rooms or something like that. See, another map 12, map 13, map 14, 15, 16. If you've seen D&D modules before, sometimes when they have a bunch of maps, they actually put in the middle section so you could pull it out or have it all organized. I definitely wish they did that with this module because, I mean, these are a lot of maps to just flip through. A lot of these rooms are just architectural designs. Some of them might represent the main headquarters of the orcs or the headquarters of the dwarves. But yeah, look at this. It goes all the way up to room 152. And that's a lot of places to explore. Certainly, if I were ever in this campaign module, I think it'd be bored out of my mind, to be honest with you. There's just a lot of exploration to be had and nothing really to gain from it. So I did mention there is one important room, and that is room 41. And that also coincidentally is on page 41 as well. So this here is room 41. It's on map 9, and it's this section here. It's a little bit small. Let me bring it a little bit closer so you can see. But it's one of the bigger rooms, and it'll be pretty obvious that this is sort of important. So this room has several different components. You can see there's a notation for airlock, a lot of machinery, and it's a control room. And so this room is actually a big pump station. So this obviously be part of the Dwarven side of the region, and it is of importance because it controls the main waterways of this region. And because it's so important, it's going to be guarded by 2 large gargoyles. And so that would be, of course, this cover here. And now you can see why Jeff Easley used this as the depiction for the module, because really it's the only thing that really is important in this module. Everything else is random encounters and really just sort of a fluff. So this is the only site of consequence. So your player characters will see that the contaminated water, which does have a sickly color to it, so it'll be obvious that it is originating from this region, and there will be switches that they have to navigate to just shut off the pump. So yeah, basically you're in this D&D module doing a plumbing job. So I thought it would be more interesting that, you know, instead of just shutting off the pump, they could actually investigate where this foul water is coming from, or the source of it. You know, maybe it's coming from a lich's lair, or you know, some utogs or whatnot. But no, it does not give any explanation about the water itself. And I think that would have been a great plot hook to dive further into this adventure and make it more compelling to play. But unfortunately, yeah, it doesn't explain exactly why the water is foul necessarily. And there's also 150 rooms, and they could have added at least one more room underneath the pump to show you where this contaminated water is from. So yeah, I think that was a missed opportunity. Certainly if I have to run this for a campaign for friends, I would probably add that on my own, or maybe using one of these Book of Layers, which actually do have some sewer encounters. And yeah, these sewer encounters are far better than this sewer encounter here. And you know what? That is essentially the module. So let me just show you here, going back to the end of the room description: success, stopping the flow. So yes, once you turn off the pump, you are mission complete. And they some additional paragraphs here detailing some other accomplishments that your player characters can strive for, but basically that is the main adventure. Let's flip it to the back here, and you are going to see some pre-rolled characters. All right, so that has been Under Illefarn, and in my opinion, this might be actually the worst of the N series. This, I don't think is a lot of fun to play. I don't think it's a great starting point for novice players because if I started this as my very first D&D adventure, I would have been bored out of my mind and found something else to do. I don't think it's easy to run as a DM with all this source material, which once again, you don't really need, but it's a lot to keep in your head if you really want to run this as a campaign. Now, on the flip side, some positive things about this. I think it is cool that it does have source material that could use in Forgotten Realms, probably to set up your own adventures rather than using the one here necessarily. I do think the adventure is level appropriate, as some of these other ones were much harder. So leave me a comment down below what you thought about this adventure, if you've ever played it before. Certainly, in my opinion, once again, N4 is the best of the bunch, and it just knocks it out of the park. So this one, I think, is probably the worst out of the N series line. However, it does have a place in history as the first module in Forgotten Realms, but technically that actually would be N4 as well. So thank you for watching, everybody. Hopefully you learned something new. I'll do other modules in the alphabet line as well. And so thank you for watching, everybody. Have a great night. Keep on adventuring out there.